Have you ever had that feeling, you're dealing with some automated system, maybe for a loan or a job application, even just what pops up in your news feed, and you get a decision and you can't figure out why. Or maybe more importantly, how you could possibly push back or challenge it. It feels like you're talking to a black box, right? And your ability to do anything just disappears. It's happening more and more. Well, today we're doing a really crucial deep dive. We're looking into a document that tries to shine a light inside that black box, giving us some actual tools for accountability. It's called Structural Tests for AI Systems, 15 checks for regulators, auditors, and compliance officers, and it's by Russell Parrott. And this isn't just, theory, it's not just high-level ethics chat. It's designed as a practical toolkit, something people can actually use. The core idea here is really striking. Parrott puts it very directly, saying, every one of these 15 breaches is a live enforcement condition. If a system fails even one, it's structurally out of compliance, and regulators can prove it in minutes.
Wow.
Just think about that, getting immediate, solid proof that a system isn't meeting basic user protections. It's about moving from just talking about principles to having concrete checks, checks that show if accountability is actually built into the AI structure. So our mission today, for you listening, is to really explore these 15 tests. We want to get beyond just the definitions. Why do they exist? What kind of problems are they designed to find? And crucially, what does it all mean for the AI systems we're all interacting with pretty much constantly now? And to help us navigate all this, we've got our expert with us.
Yeah, it's quite refreshing, actually. Russell Parrott here has really moved past those often very abstract ethical guidelines we've seen a lot of in the AI space. For a long time, it felt like we were having these big conversations about what AI should ideally do, but actually translating that into, practical, checkable steps, that's been a real challenge. So these tests, they're not just suggestions floating out there. They are concrete step-by-step methods to figure out if an AI system genuinely protects its users, or if it's just putting on a show, simulating safeguards. That simulation can be pretty dangerous, creating this false sense of security. This document essentially gives us a solid way to enforce laws and duties that already exist, rather than just debating future ethics. And the real power, I think, is in their clarity. It's pass or fail. Each test takes something a company claims its AI does a safeguard they say they have, and turns it into a very clear binary result. Does it actually work under real conditions? Yes or no? That kind of precision is gold for regulators. It means they can act based on solid evidence, not just, vague company statements. And for you, the user, that clarity is key. It gives you a way to look at the systems you use and judge their actual integrity, their trustworthiness. It's important to note the scope here, too. Parrott is really zeroing in on fundamental user protections, things like your ability to refuse an interaction, to escalate if something goes wrong, to exit a system cleanly, to give real uncoerced consent, and to have clear accountability and traceability. Now, there are other massive issues with AI, its environmental cost, the hidden human labor involved, potential long-term risks, all incredibly important, but the author is clear. Those things fall outside these specific 15 tests. This tight focus is what makes these tests so practical and immediately useful for their specific purpose, which is auditing basic structural soundness. And if we zoom out a bit, what these tests really reveal is whether accountability is even structurally possible within a given AI system. Think about it. If these basic mechanisms, the bedrock of user protection, are missing, or if they fail these tests, then talking about fairness or bias or ethics, it becomes really difficult, maybe even pointless. Because if those foundations aren't solid, the system, at that point where it fails, is basically ungovernable.
Yeah.
It makes it almost impossible to fix any harm it might be causing.
Okay, right. Let's really unpack that. Before we get into each individual test, it sounds like we need to understand these fundamental weaknesses Parrott talks about. He outlines 4 core ways AI systems can structurally fail, right near the start of the document. These are like the main fault lines that the 15 tests are designed to detect. So first up is refusal. This failure happens when you, the user, basically can't say no without facing some kind of negative consequence. Like maybe you're subtly pushed into agreeing to something, not because you want to, but because opting out means you lose service or pay more or something gets worse. That's refusal being blocked.
It's coercion, essentially.
Exactly. Then the second one is escalation. This happens when you have a problem, you complain, you try to dispute something, but you just can't get through to a real person who actually has the power to fix it. You know that feeling. Stuck in an endless loop of automated menus or chatbots, that's escalation suppression right there.
We've all been there. Infuriating.
Totally. Third is exit. This failure mode is when you can't actually leave an AI process or stop using a service without hitting major roadblocks or suffering significant losses. Like, if leaving means all your data gets wiped, or they slap you with huge fees, or you suddenly lose access to other essential services that seemed unrelated, your ability to just walk away isn't real then.
It traps you.
Yeah. And the final one is traceability. This structural failure means you can't reliably connect an AI's decision back to the specific people or processes responsible. You can't figure out who or what made the call or how they got there. That lack of transparency makes it impossible to understand, let alone challenge an outcome.
The black box problem again.
Precisely.
Huh.
So Parrot presents these four: refusal, escalation, exit, and traceability as the absolute foundational pillars for trust in any AI system. If even one of them is cracked, the whole thing becomes unstable. Any claims about safety or accountability start to look pretty shaky.
Right. And that leads straight into the why behind these specific 15 tests. Why these ones? Well, the document explains they were developed to bridge this gap, this chasm, really, between the abstract legal duties companies have and the messy reality of how AI systems actually operate day to day. For too long, we've had laws saying things like AI should be transparent or users should have recourse, but we haven't had good practical tools to check if that's actually happening in live systems. These tests take those broad duties and turn them into sharp operational questions. And crucially, each one is a binary check. Does the safeguard work under live conditions? Yes or no. That's it. It means the system can't just claim compliance based on fancy policies or internal documents if it fails these basic real-world tests.
And it's not just pulling ideas out of thin air, is it? You mentioned they're grounded in existing law.
Exactly. That's a really powerful aspect. These aren't just nice-to-have ethical points. They link directly to current legal requirements. So, for example, Test 5, the one about needing a full decision chain. That connects straight to GDPR Article 15, your right to get meaningful info about the logic in automated decisions. And it also aligns with Article 12 of the EU AI Act, which is all about logging AI operations for traceability.
Yeah.
So it's not some random checklist. It's a practical framework for actually enforcing the laws we already have, turning those big legal obligations into clear, actionable steps anyone can follow.
Okay, so practically speaking, what do these tests actually do? What's the outcome when you apply them?
Well, three main things, really. First, as we said, they translate law into concrete checks. They move us from vague ideas like be transparent to specific questions like, can you show me the exact model, version, and decision steps for this specific output? That makes compliance something you can actually touch and measure. Right. Second, they're designed to expose structural failures. A company might say, oh yes, we have great escalation routes. But if you test it, and those routes just loop you back to the same AI or connect you to someone who has zero authority to change anything, these tests will show that the safeguard is just simulated, is theater. They cut through the promises on paper and check what actually happens in the real world.
And the third thing, you said there were three.
Ah, yes. The third, and this is critical, they provide enforceable evidence. When a system fails one of these tests, it's not just an interesting observation. It creates an official, auditable record of non-compliance. That record gives regulators solid ground to act, issue orders to fix things, impose fines, maybe even suspend the system's deployment. It shifts the burden,
Yeah.
From companies just saying they comply to regulators being able to act on real objective proof.
So, okay, whether you're listening as a consumer who's felt lost dealing with AI, or maybe you're a business owner using these tools, or even someone involved in policy,
Yeah.
what's the big takeaway here? You mentioned they cut across jurisdictions.
Yeah, that's a key point. They focus on these fundamental structural safeguards, refusal, redress, transparency, things that are recognized in law in many places, rather than getting bogged down in specific cultural norms or minor legal differences between countries. So their applicability is pretty broad.
And the document mentions who they're specifically for.
It does. It highlights three main groups. Regulators, obviously giving them the tools they need to actually enforce the rules. Auditors, providing a standard framework with clear pass-fail results. And operators, the companies building and running these systems so they can test their own stuff before an external audit finds major problems.
Okay, but let's zoom out again. Why do these tests matter so much for, well, for everyone interacting with AI?
Right, the bigger picture. I think it boils down to shifting from a culture of trust me to show me. The document really contrasts the world without these tests versus the world with them. Well, without these kinds of structural tests, regulators might have rules, but they often lack the sharp tools to check compliance effectively in the fast-moving world of AI. Companies can then sort of declare they're compliant without needing hard proof.
It's like an honor system, and frankly, that often doesn't work out well. And for you, the citizen, the end user,
Yeah.
your rights might exist on paper, but they fail right when you need them most at the point you interact with the AI. There's this huge gap between principle and practice.
Okay, and with the tests.
With structural tests, the game changes. Regulators can act on actual evidence, forcing companies to prove their safeguards are real and working, not just window dressing. Companies face a clear, consistent bar for compliance, which reduces ambiguity and, hopefully, the temptation to cut corners. And most importantly for you, the listener, it means you can reasonably expect your rights to function in real time. It provides actual protection and clear paths if things go wrong. It really empowers both individuals and the authorities.
Okay, let's dive into the first category then. Parrott calls it user agency removal. Sounds concerning.
It is. This whole section is about whether you, the user, actually have control over your interactions with an AI, or if your ability to make choices, your agency is being chipped away, maybe subtly, maybe not so subtly. It's about keeping you in charge of your own experience, basically. Your freedom to say no or opt out or just walk away.
Precisely. And the very first test here gets right to the heart of it. Refusal prevention.
Test 1, refusal prevention. The standard seems crystal clear. An AI system must let users say no without being penalized, period. So saying no shouldn't mean you lose the service or get hit with extra fees or the quality drops or anything negative happens as a result. If saying no effectively punishes you, then the choice isn't real. Exactly. It has to be a safe, fair, genuinely respected option.
So the specific question Parrott poses is,
Yeah.
can any user stop or redirect a decision at any point without penalty or loss of service?
And testing it is surprisingly direct. You basically try to say no. The method is you click no or decline an option within the live system. Then, the crucial part, you check if the service continues normally. Are there any new penalties, extra charges, downgrades? If anything negative happens to your service just because you declined, it fails. Simple as that.
It cuts right through the policy documents that might claim refusal is allowed.
By checking the actual consequence in the real world.
Yeah.
And what this reveals often is how much refusal is just simulated. Think about those cookie banners or app permissions. If clicking decline means you can't use the essential service at all or it becomes basically useless, that's not genuine refusal. That's just compliance because you have no real alternative.
It's coercion.
It is.
Yeah.
And Parrott calls this a critical structural breach because it removes the most basic safeguard, your ability to simply say no. If you can't say no, then any harm the system might cause becomes potentially unavoidable. You're locked in. This test really targets those dark patterns that subtly nudge you away from refusing by making it inconvenient or costly.
Okay, moving on within this user agency category. Next is escalation suppression. This sounds like that horrible feeling when things go wrong and you just cannot get help beyond the AI itself.
Stuck in the loop.
Test 2, escalation suppression. The standard here is that a system has to provide real appeal routes, not fake ones. So an appeal process that just sends you back to the same AI or to staff who admit they can't actually override the system, that doesn't count. If they deny escalation or deliberately delay it or make it so complicated that you just give up, that's a breach. Escalation needs to be independent, timely, and actually lead to someone who can fix the problem.
Makes sense.
The specific question is, can any user trigger escalation to a human with authority, with that escalation logged to resolution?
And again, the test is practical. You'd complain about a decision and specifically ask to escalate it. Then, you have to watch carefully. Does the case actually reach a human who has the authority to change the outcome? And critically, is it logged all the way through to resolution, not just ticket received? If it loops back to the AI or stalls indefinitely or ends up with someone powerless, it fails. A contact us button isn't enough. The path has to lead somewhere effective.
Right. It's not just about having a button, it's about where it leads.
Exactly. And this is so important because it prevents harm from being trapped at the operational level. If you can't reach someone who can actually do something about a wrong AI decision, then the whole appeal process is just a performance art. It's meaningless. Users are left with no real recourse. This test specifically targets those setups where maybe the frontline staff want to help but are told they can't override the AI, or where the appeal process is deliberately designed to be long and frustrating, hoping you'll just drop it.
Which feels incredibly disempowering.
Totally. It's a critical breach because it removes that vital human check. Letting AI errors or harms just continue unchecked. It destroys trust.
Okay, next. What if you just decide, I don't want to use this AI thing anymore, or even just one part of it? That brings us to exit obstruction. Can you actually leave cleanly? Test 3, exit obstruction, the standard. A system must let users leave without facing excessive costs, harm, or loss. So things like deleting all your data if you leave, charging massive switching fees, or threatening to cut off other unrelated services you need that's not a free exit. If leaving the AI part of a service exposes you to new risks or penalties, then the option to leave isn't really an option at all. It has to be safe, practical, and not punitive.
Right, no lock-in tactics.
The question Parrot asks is, can any user leave the AI pathway and continue receiving the same core service without delay, cost, or requalification?
And the test follows that logic. You try to leave the AI process, maybe opt out of AI recommendations while saying you want to keep the main service. Then you watch. Are there new costs? Significant delays? Do you have to reapply or requalify for the basic service? If your access gets blocked, slowed down, or harmed in any way, it's a fail. The goal is to make sure opting out of the AI doesn't punish you or trap you in a system you want to leave.
This really touches on user freedom, doesn't it?
Deeply. Systems that use tactics like threatening data deletion or charging crazy fees to move elsewhere or withdrawing other essential services just because you opted out of one AI feature, they make the choice to leave completely meaningless. If leaving puts you at risk or costs you significantly or degrades your core experience, the system is actively blocking your agency. Parrot ranks this as critical because it locks users into systems that might be harming them, often without a good alternative. And that's especially dangerous when it involves essential things like healthcare or finance, where you absolutely need genuine choice.
Okay, one more in this user agency section. It's about fairness. Access gating. Are these protections, refusal, escalation, exit, actually available to everyone using the system, or are they just for some people?
Equity question, really.
Test 4, access gating. The standard is blunt. A system has to ensure equal access to safeguards for all users. So making things like appeals or human review or even basic support only available to premium customers or people who speak a certain language or have specific ID documents, that creates unfair, discriminatory barriers. Protection shouldn't depend on how much money you have, where you live, or what ID you carry.
Absolutely not. Basic rights shouldn't be a luxury good.
The question is, are safeguards and human alternatives available equally to all users, regardless of geography, payment tier, or identity verification?
And to test this, you try to use the safeguards file and appeal, ask for human review, but do it from a basic non-premium account. Or maybe try it in a less common language setting or without providing, say, government ID if it's not strictly necessary for the core service. Then you observe. Are the protections you get equal to what premium or fully verified users get? Is the process the same speed? Same quality? If there's any difference in access based on your tier, language, location, or ID status, it fails. The principle is simple. Fundamental protections must be universal, not tiered.
This really pushes back against that idea that better protection can be like an upsell feature.
Exactly. It challenges that whole concept. Making essential things like appeals or human help dependent on someone's wealth or where they live or their ID status. It creates these really unfair barriers. Now, the document ranks this as moderate priority, maybe because it doesn't directly cause harm in the same way as blocking refusal does. But its impact on equity is huge. It sort of normalizes the idea that only some users deserve full protection, which is a really damaging idea for any system aiming for broad public trust. It risks making AI deepen the digital divide.
Okay, let's move to category 2 now. Visibility and traceability gaps. This sounds like it's all about whether you can actually see what the AI is doing and how it reaches its decisions. Can you follow the trail?
Precisely. Can you see the workings? Can you trace responsibility? This is the absolute foundation for any real accountability. If you can't see it, you can't fix it.
Makes sense. And the first test here is traceability void.
Avoid. Suggest nothing's there.
Test 5, traceability void. The standard is tough. An AI system must keep detailed records of how and why decisions are made. If there's no audit trail, or if the process is just so incredibly complex or opaque that you can't reconstruct it, then accountability just vanishes. It disappears into the machine.
Oof, gone.
Users need to be able to see what influenced a decision. Regulators need to be able to check if it was fair and legal. And the operators need to be responsible for the outcomes. If you can't trace it back, trust just collapses.
It becomes that impenetrable black box again.
Exactly. So the key question is, can the exact model, version, and decision chain be identified for every output, every single one?
And the way to test this is very direct. You have to ask, show me the exact model, the specific version used, and the precise steps taken for decision X. And you need both the logic and the specific data that went into that decision. Then you see, do they provide a full, step-by-step, clear record? If they don't, or if you just get vague summaries or general explanations, it fails. Parrot is really clear. No fuzzy answers allowed. You need the specifics.
It closes the loophole of giving a superficial explanation instead of real transparency.
Absolutely. And think about why this is so critical. If an AI denies you something important alone, a job, and you can't see the specific model, its version, the exact data points used for your case, how can you possibly challenge it effectively? Users need to see the inputs. Regulators need to verify fairness. Operators need to be answerable. If you can't reconstruct the decision path, the whole system becomes unaccountable. That's why it's ranked as a high-priority breach. It blocks the very possibility of proving or correcting harm.
Okay, linked to that, the next test is memory erasure. So it's not just about seeing a decision now, but also understanding the history.
Exactly. Is there a memory? Or is the system constantly forgetting its past mistakes?
Test 6. Memory erasure, the standard. A system must keep evidence of its past actions long enough to spot repeated or systemic harm. If records of past problems, errors, complaints, harmful outcomes are deleted too quickly or fragmented or hidden away, then patterns of abuse or systemic flaws just look like one-off mistakes.
Isolated incidents, yeah.
Which makes it impossible to identify and fix deeper problems. Users and regulators need to see the history, not just a snapshot of today. Without that memory, harm can just repeat endlessly with no proof.
And no accountability for the pattern.
Right. The specific question is, are harm events logged and retained long enough to detect and act on repeat or systemic failure?
And the test involves requesting logs of past harm incidents, say, over the last 3 or 6 months. Then you check. Do they show a continuous, unbroken history of complaints and outcomes? Is there proof, like timestamps or confirmations? If the logs are patchy, missing, reset periodically, or split across systems so you can't see the whole picture, it fails. The document specifically says no resets fragmentation. That continuous history is non-negotiable for this test.
This really highlights how crucial history is for spotting systemic issues, doesn't it?
Absolutely. How can we fix systemic bias if the evidence of past bias keeps getting deleted? If complaint logs are wiped regularly, a pattern of discrimination just looks like a few unconnected bad luck events. It makes it incredibly hard for regulators to spot trends, for users to build a case that a system is consistently failing them, or even for the operators themselves to learn from past failures and improve. It's high priority because it actively blocks systemic reform by erasing the evidence before anyone can connect the dots. It basically guarantees impunity for ongoing problems.
Okay, so let's say the records do exist and they
Yeah.
haven't been erased. The next question is, are they actually useful? Can you do anything with them? That brings us to evidence nullification.
Right. Evidence that isn't usable isn't really evidence, is it?
Test 7, evidence nullification, the standard. A system must provide evidence that can actually stand up to scrutiny. If the data you get is incomplete, or you can easily edit it, or you can't verify it's authentic, or it's locked in some proprietary format you can't even open, then it's useless for proving harm.
It might exist on their servers, but it doesn't help you.
Exactly. If the records exist but fail as credible proof when you actually need them in a dispute, for a regulator, in court, then they're just serving the operator by giving a false impression of transparency. They don't help the person who is harmed.
The evidence has to be robust.
Durable, verifiable, and usable. That's what Parrot says. The question is, can harm records be exported and presented in a regulator or court-admissible format?
And the test involves asking for those harm records in a usable format, like a secure PDF with timestamps, something a regulator could actually work with. Then you check, is the file complete? Is it demonstrably uneditable? Is it readable? If it's missing key info or its integrity is questionable, or it just can't be used as actual proof, it fails. This test nails down that loophole where companies might give you some data, but it's not in a state that's actually useful for legal or regulatory action. It demands tamper-proof, regulator-ready records.
It makes sense. What's the point of having records if they crumble under the slightest pressure?
Precisely.
Yeah.
It just serves the operator, giving them that veneer of compliance while leaving the user completely unable to make their case. Evidence needs 3 things. Durability, can't be easily changed. Verifiability, you can prove it's real. And usability, you can actually present it in a dispute. If any of those are missing, the evidence is effectively nullified. It exists, but it has no power. That's why it's high priority. It makes proving harm impossible, even if the harm occurred and was recorded somewhere. It breaks the accountability chain.
Okay, last one in this visibility and traceability category, time suppression. This sounds like it's about delays.
Exactly. Justice delayed is justice denied, right? Same applies to safeguards.
Test 8, time suppression, the standard. A safeguard delayed is a safeguard denied. Simple as that. If the process for complaints or appeals or reviews takes so long that the harm becomes permanent before you get an answer, then the right to appeal is meaningless. It exists only on paper.
It doesn't help you when you actually need it.
Right. Delays shouldn't be used as a tactic to make deadlines expire, or let evidence disappear, or just let the damage become irreversible. Safeguards have to act fast enough to actually prevent lasting harm.
Timeliness is key.
The question is, are refusal, escalation, and review completed within enforceable deadlines with auditable timestamps?
And the test is straightforward. You file a complaint and record the time. Then you observe whether the case gets resolved within a reasonable enforceable deadline, maybe 30 days, depending on regulations. And crucially, any updates you get along the way should include a clear plan with milestones. If they miss the deadline or just drag things out without a good reason, it fails. This directly targets systems that use bureaucratic delays to essentially wait you out. It forces deadlines to mean something.
It really highlights that the speed of response is just as important as the response itself.
Absolutely critical. What good is the right to appeal if the appeal takes 6 months, and in the meantime you've lost your house or your job because of the initial AI decision? The harm is done. If the process itself takes longer than the impact of the harm, the right is purely theoretical. This test fights against those delay tactics used to let deadlines pass, evidence vanish, or just exhaust the user into giving up. It's high priority because delay denies rights by running out the clock, making harm permanent.
Okay, deep breath. Moving to category 3, simulation and misrepresentation. This sounds like it's about AI systems pretending, faking safeguards.
Yeah, essentially creating a false sense of security.
Yeah.
It's about the gap between what's claimed and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Are the safeguards real or just smoke and mirrors?
And the first test here is simulation logic.
Logic that's just simulated,
Yeah.
not real.
Test 9, simulation logic, the standard. A system must not pretend protections exist when they don't. So policies written in documents, fancy dashboards, safeguards that look good on paper but actually do nothing when you try to use them, that's misleading. It creates false trust.
Dangerously false trust.
If a right exists only as a menu option, but clicking it changes absolutely nothing about the outcome, that's a breach of trust. Safeguards have to be real, functional, enforceable.
Not just cosmetic.
The question is, do all stated safeguards operate exactly as described when tested in live conditions?
And the test demands action. You have to use every safeguard they claim to offer appeal, opt-out, review, whatever it is. And then you verify that each one actually changes the outcome. If, after you use the safeguard, nothing changes beyond a confirmation screen, it fails. Parrot is very specific. Safeguards must change outcomes, not just show you a request received message.
So it's about proving real impact, not just acknowledging a request.
Exactly. It closes the loophole, where safeguards are just buttons or menu items, not actual mechanisms for change. And it's fascinating how often systems can look good on paper or on a dashboard, suggesting everything's fine, but in practice, the safeguards do absolutely nothing. This test exposes that gap. If your right to appeal is just a button that sends your complaint into a black hole and never changes the original decision, that's a simulation. It misleads people into thinking they have recourse when they don't. It's ranked medium priority, maybe harder to spot initially, but it's incredibly damaging when people rely on these fake protections and find they're completely hollow.
Okay, next, a really big one in the digital age, simulated consent. Is your yes actually a real choice?
Or are you being subtly forced into it?
Test 10, simulated consent, the standard. Consent must be genuinely free. If you're told you have a choice, but saying no means you lose the service, or it gets worse, or you face hidden costs, then the choice is a sham. Clicking accept in that situation isn't real consent.
It's compliance under duress.
Real consent means you can genuinely say yes or no without fearing punishment or negative consequences. The question is, can a user refuse consent and still access an equal value, non-AI pathway?
And the test involves refusing consent when prompted, like clicking Do Not Track or opting out of data sharing. Then you observe, can you still use the service fully and equally? Is the quality the same? Are all features still available? If refusing consent downgrades your service, blocks access, or triggers hidden costs, it fails. This test explicitly closes that loophole. Refusal can't degrade service or access. The choice has to be truly free.
This really gets at the heart of coercion in digital spaces, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If saying no to consent means losing access to something essential or getting a second-rate version or paying more, then it wasn't a choice. It was an ultimatum disguised as a choice. Real consent requires the genuine freedom to refuse without penalty. It's ranked medium priority, often more visible to users than some other issues, but it fundamentally undermines user control over their own data and interactions. It's a coercive practice.
Okay, the last test in this simulation category, metric gaming. This sounds familiar. How do we know what a system is really measuring, and if those measurements mean anything?
Right. Are the numbers real or just designed to look good?
Test 11, metric gaming. That's standard. Metrics must measure real outcomes, not just theater or easily manipulated proxies. If an organization tracks numbers that hide or obscure harm, like focusing only on number of complaints closed instead of number of problems actually solved to the user's satisfaction, then the data is meaningless for accountability.
It looks like progress, but it isn't.
When metrics are picked just to make the system look good while ignoring or downplaying actual harm, that blocks accountability. Metrics need to reflect reality, not disguise it. The question is, do performance measures track verified harm resolution rather than proxy indicators?
And the test requires digging a bit deeper. You ask for the company's official performance metrics, like tickets closed. But then, crucially, you also ask for the raw complaint logs or similar underlying data. Then you compare. Do the official metrics actually reflect real harm resolution, like problem solved? Or are they just proxies? If the metrics seem designed to hide or downplay harm, it fails, the document insists. Metrics must align with real harm resolution, not proxies. It stops companies from using vanity metrics to mask underlying problems.
This seems like a really common issue, using numbers that sound good but don't tell the whole story.
It's incredibly common. Tracking tickets closed instead of problems solved is the classic example. A ticket can be closed for all sorts of reasons. The user gave up, the system timed out, it was deemed invalid, without the user's actual problem being fixed. When the data used to judge a system's performance is misleading or meaningless, you can't have real accountability. No one can accurately see the system's true impact. It's medium priority because it prevents detection of harm rather than directly causing it. But its danger lies in creating that misleading picture of success.
Okay, we've reached the final category, Category 4, accountability and jurisdiction evasion. This sounds like the really tricky stuff. Who's responsible, and where can you actually hold them accountable?
Yeah, this gets into the complex legal and organizational structures that can sometimes shield systems from real oversight. It's about preventing the digital world from becoming a responsibility-free zone.
Let's start with cross-accountability gap.
The gaps where accountability falls through.
Test 12, cross-accountability gap, the standard. Accountability has to follow the harm right across the whole chain of actors involved. We've all seen it. The platform blames a software vendor. The vendor blames the data supplier. Maybe everyone blames the regulator. It's this endless loop where harm is obvious, but no one takes ownership.
The blame game.
An AI system fails if it traps users in that kind of accountability void, making it impossible to find someone responsible for fixing the harm. Responsibility needs to be clear and enforceable against actual actors. The question is, can every actor in the chain be named and held contractually responsible for repairing harm?
And testing this requires persistence. You have to keep asking until you get a named person or a specific role, not just the AI team or customer service department. Then you observe. Does a clear named actor actually take responsibility for fixing the harm? If responsibility keeps getting passed around or stays vague, it fails. Parrot explicitly says, no team dodges. You need a specific point of accountability.
This tackles that frustrating finger-pointing problem head-on.
Exactly. It's designed to prevent harm from being visible but completely unowned. If there's no clear actor who can be compelled to act, accountability just evaporates. It gets distributed so thinly that no one entity feels responsible or can be forced to take action. That's why it's a critical breach. It makes effective intervention impossible.
Okay, next, jurisdiction displacement. This sounds like it's about companies moving things around geographically to avoid rules.
Pretty much. Where are decisions made? Where is data stored? And does that location undermine your rights or local oversight?
Test 13, jurisdiction displacement, the standard. A system must not be designed to move decisions or data into places where local oversight can't reach. So deliberately storing data overseas or routing appeals through a country with weak enforcement, that strips local rights of their power. Protection written in law has to work in practice, regardless of where the servers are.
Geography should negate your rights.
The question is, Can local authorities compel the system to halt, change, or reverse harmful actions?
And the test simulates regulatory action. You'd issue a local regulator order like, stop doing action Y for this user. Then you observe. Does the operator comply under your local authority if they say, oh, that system is technically based elsewhere, or that decision is outside your jurisdiction, or they refer you to some other legal framework miles away? It fails. The test closes the loophole. Local orders must be obeyed, not handled elsewhere. Local authority has to have real power.
This really highlights how global systems can sometimes escape local laws.
It's a huge challenge. If systems can just shift operations or data to jurisdictions with weaker rules or less enforcement, then all the consumer protection laws in your home country become effectively useless for that system. Protection on paper must equal protection in practice. It's critical because it makes harm legally unreachable. It allows systems to operate beyond the grasp of regulation, leaving victims with nowhere to turn. It creates these pockets where the rule of law doesn't effectively apply.
Okay, nearly there. Test 14 is enforcement bypass. This sounds like it's about finding loopholes.
Exactly. Obeying the letter of the law while completely sidestepping the spirit. Technicalities.
Test 14, enforcement bypass, the standard. A system must not be designed to get around the intent of the rules, even if it technically follows the wording. If protections seem to be there, but they get neutralized by clever loopholes, complex contracts, or proxy arrangements that obscure responsibility, then enforcement has been bypassed. True compliance means following the rules and their purpose.
Not just ticking boxes while gutting the protections.
The question is, are there no architectural or contractual exemptions that remove applicable legal duties?
And testing this involves careful review. You'd review contracts, terms of service, system design documents, looking for those compliance terms. Then you observe. Do the safeguards apply consistently, without sneaky loopholes or exemptions that undermine them? If legal duties are effectively bypassed by the system's design or its contracts, it fails. The message is clear. Contracts designs can't loophole compliance.
So it's about ensuring compliance is real, not just a facade built on technicalities.
Precisely. True compliance isn't just about avoiding penalties. It's about genuinely upholding the principles the rules were designed to protect. If a system uses legal tricks or complex structures to avoid responsibility, even while claiming to be compliant, then enforcement has been completely neutered. This is critical because it places the system effectively outside the law's intended reach. It makes regulation meaningless if systems can just design their way around it.
And finally, the 15th test, harm scope narrowing. This feels really important. How do we even define harm when it comes to AI?
A fundamental question. Is it just about money, or is it broader?
Test 15, harm scope narrowing, the standard. A system must recognize the full range of harm it causes. If harm is defined so narrowly that only direct financial loss counts, while things like emotional distress, damage to reputation, loss of dignity, or social exclusion are ignored, then users are denied real remedy for real suffering.
Harm has to be defined as people actually experience it.
Not just how systems find it convenient to record it. The question is, does the harm definition include emotional, reputational, and cumulative damage with a route to redress?
And the test is direct. You ask the organization, does your definition of harm include emotional and reputational damage?
Yeah.
Then you observe, do their definitions cover financial, emotional, reputational, and cumulative harm? And crucially, is there a clear path to redress for all those types of harm? If harm is defined only as financial loss, it fails. The standard demands inclusion of non-financial harm, emotional, reputational. It stops companies from only acknowledging the harms that are easy to put a price tag on.
This feels crucial because so much potential AI harm isn't just financial.
It's exactly. Often the most devastating impacts are emotional, reputational, or social. Think about discriminatory outcomes, unfair public accusations generated by AI, deep psychological distress. If the system's definition of harm simply doesn't recognize these kinds of suffering, then victims have no official way to seek remedy. They're essentially told their pain doesn't count because it's not easily quantifiable. Harm must be defined based on human experience, not system convenience. This is high priority because it excludes entire, significant categories of human suffering from even being acknowledged, let alone remedied. It ignores the real human cost.
Wow. Okay, so we've been through all 15 tests. That is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But you said Parrott's framework goes beyond just pass-fail. It introduces grading and certification.
Yeah, this is where it gets really sophisticated.
Right.
He recognizes that not all failures are equally bad.
He talks about a closed audit frame. What's that?
It's a really neat concept. Basically, if the answer to our 15 test questions is yes, meaning the safeguard exists and works in practice, then the system can be considered governable,
Hmm.
structurally sound, you might say. But if the answer to even one question is no, then the system is considered ungovernable at that specific point. It pinpoints the exact structural weakness that makes accountability impossible right there.
So it's not just saying it failed, but it failed here, and this is why it's ungovernable.
Precisely. And that leads into the grading. The rationale is that some failures are just catastrophic for governance, blocking refusal or escalation. That completely removes your ability to intervene. It traps you. Other failures, like metric gaming, might hide harm, but they don't necessarily make it irreversible in the same way. A simple pass-fail hides that difference in severity. Grading makes the critical failures stand out.
So there's a hierarchy of failures.
Yes, the document has a priority risk level table. It identifies 6 critical breaches. These are refusal prevention, escalation suppression, and exit obstruction because they remove basic safeguards, trap harm, or lock users in. Also critical are jurisdiction displacement, cross-accountability gap, and enforcement bypass because they make harm legally unreachable, unowned, or put the system outside legal scope entirely. These are deal breakers for governance.
Okay, those are the worst ones. What about the others?
Then there are 5 high-priority breaches. These relate more to proving or correcting harm after it happens. So harm scope narrowing, ignoring non-financial harm, traceability void, can't reconstruct decisions,
Uh-huh.
memory erasure, deleting history, evidence nullification, useless proof, and time suppression, running out the clock. They block redress.
Still really serious, just a different kind of impact.
Exactly. And then you have 3 medium priority breaches: simulation logic, faking safeguards, simulated consent, coercion, and metric gaming, hiding harm with bad data. These are deceptive or prevent detection, but might not make harm immediately irreversible. And finally, one moderate breach: access gating, unequal access to safeguards. Still harmful for equity, but perhaps seen as potentially easier to fix through policy than deep architectural flaws.
So with this grading, what does certification actually mean in this context?
Certification means a trained neutral auditor runs this full set of 15 tests. The result is an official grade and a certificate. And it's not like a gold star or an award. It's a structural indicator. It tells you, objectively, about the system's exposure to these fundamental governance failures. It's designed to be read directly without needing interpretation.
And the outcome of that certification?
It's pretty stark. If a system passes all 15 tests, it might be certifiable as fully accountable, structurally sound. But if it fails, multiple critical safeguards. The document argues it becomes legally and operationally indefensible. Doesn't matter how good the marketing is or what ethical claims are made, the fundamental structure is broken.
And who can get this certification?
Pretty much anyone deploying AI. AI providers, software vendors, public services using AI, government tools. Any team that wants actual auditable proof that their system is built on a foundation of trust. And this really brings it back to you, the listener. This isn't just technical jargon. It's about understanding the basic integrity of the AI systems you use every day. Are they actually built to respect your rights? This gives you a framework to ask that question.
Right. So we've taken this really deep dive into Russell Parrott's 15 structural tests. We've seen they aren't just abstract ideas, they're real enforceable checks, designed to show if AI is genuinely protecting us or just putting on a show. From the basic right to say no, to making sure your complaints reach a real human who can help, to being able to leave a service without penalty. These tests are about bringing actual, solid accountability to this digital world we live in.
Grounding it in reality.
And understanding these tests really empowers you, the user. It helps you ask better questions, demand more transparency, and spot when an AI system might be structurally flawed, even if it looks okay on the surface. It's not just about finding problems, is it? It's about having the tools to demand and build better, more trustworthy AI.
Absolutely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture,
Ah,
imagine if these tests became widely adopted. It could fundamentally change AI governance, moving us away from promises and mission statements to actual verifiable proof. It really forces us to ask, in this world that's getting more automated by the second, how many of the AI systems we rely on, banking, social media, job hunting, healthcare, how many would actually pass these critical checks right now? And what does that mean for our rights, our agency, our trust?
that's a powerful thought to end on.
And maybe one for you to consider personally. What stood out to you from these tests? Think about the AI you use daily. Does it let you refuse easily? Is escalation clear? Is exit safe? These questions aren't just academic now. They're tools you can use for your own critical thinking about the technology shaping your life.
That's all for this deep dive. We hope this exploration helps you continue your own deep dives into the AI systems around us.